Hi, this is JB. Today I'm going to tell you a story about a simple meal which became a serious test during the Orc woman's interview. Nathan Cole had seen a lot of strange things in his years running the hiring desk at Orbital Bridge Recruitment Agency. He had interviewed a seven-armed creature from the Vath system who could not stop humming. He had once reviewed a resume written entirely in smoke signals. He thought nothing could surprise him anymore. He was wrong. The morning started like any other. Nathan sat at his small desk on the upper floor of the agency, a cup of black coffee going cold beside him, a stack of candidates, files open in front of him. The position he was trying to fill was logistic coordinator abroad. The position he was trying to fill was logistic coordinator aboard the deep space human freighter long haul sovereign. It was a hard job. Long routes, tight margins, no room for mistakes. Three candidates had already walked away from it. Two humans and one alien diplomat. Said, who had taken one look at the contract and quietly left without saying goodbye. Nathan needed someone tough, someone who did not scare easily. He picked up the next file. The name of the front read Terra Boss. He opened it. Her background was good. Very good. Former military logistics, deep space route mapping, supply chain management in conflict zones. On paper, she was exactly what the freighter needed. Then his assistant, Lucy Hardy, knocked on the door frame and said very quietly that the candidate had arrived. Nathan sent her to send her in. Dora was walked through the door and the room left smaller immediately. She was nearly 7 feet tall, broad at the shoulder, with green skin and dark eyes that moved slowly and carefully around the room, like she was memorizing it. She wore a formal suit that looked like someone had tried very hard to make it fit. It almost did. She carried herself with the kind of stillness that did not come from being calm. It came from being certain. Lucy, standing behind her, looked like she had forgotten how to breathe. Nathan stood up and extended his hand. Dora looked at it for a second, then shook it. Her grip was firm but careful, like she was making a point of being gentle. They sat down. Nathan asked Lucy to bring the standard interview refreshment tray. It was something the agency always did, a small gesture, a little food and drink to put candidates at ease. A few minutes later, Lucy came back with the tray. On it sat a plain Turkish sandwich, a small bowl of salted crackers, a cup of tomato soup, and a mug of black coffee. Simple, ordinary. The same tray they sent out every time. Lucy set it down between them and left quickly. Nathan glanced at the tray and then back at his files. He was about to begin the formal questions, but something made him pause. Dara was staring at the tray, not at him, not at the room, at the tray. Her expression had not changed exactly, but something behind her eyes had shifted, like a door opening just a little in a very quiet house. She did not reach for anything. Nathan sat down his pen and waited. Nathan watched her for a moment. He had learned early in his career that silence in an interview was not always a bad sign. Sometimes the best candidates were the ones who did not rush to fill every quiet space with noise. He thought maybe she was unfamiliar with human food. It was a reasonable guess. Not every species that applied to human run crews had spent much time around human customs. He leaned forward slightly and pointed to the tray. He told her the names of each item: the sandwich, the crackers, the soup, the coffee. He kept his voice easy, like he was telling a friend what was on the menu at a small restaurant. Dara turned her head and looked at him. She said very calmly that she knew what they were. She had studied human food before applying. She had studied quite a lot about humans. In fact, Nathan nodded. He said that was good. He asked if she would like anything different. She said no. Then she said something that made him put his pen down completely. She told him that among her people, the Orc clans of the Workai Mountains, sharing a small meal with someone was not a small thing. It was not done to be polite. It was not background noise to a conversation. It was not background noise to a conversation. It was a test, a quiet one, but a real one. The food that a host offered told the guest everything about who that host really was, what they valued, how much attention they paid to the world around them, whether they could be trusted when things got hard. Nathan listened without interrupting. He was good at that. He was good at that. Dora continued. She said that by placing food in front of her, he had opened something, whether he meant to or not. In our tradition, this movement now carried weight. To ignore it would be disrespectful to both of them. She said she did not blame him for not knowing. Humans rarely knew, but now he did. The room was very quiet. Somewhere outside in the corridor, he could hear the low hum of the station's air system. Nathan thought about this for a few seconds. He was not a man who got flustered easily. He had handled stranger situations than this, but he was also honest enough with himself to admit that he had not expected today to go this way. He asked her what she meant by poor cities. She told him she would eat, but she would also ask him three questions about the meal. His answers would matter to her, not as tricks, not as games, as information. She wanted to know who she might be working for. She thought that she thought that was a fair thing to want. Nathan leaned back in his chair. He looked at the tray. He looked at her. Then he said something that surprised even himself. He said, all right, ask your questions. Lucy, who had come back quietly to stand near the corner of the room with her notepad, slowly pulled the cap off her pen. Dara did not rush. She sat very still for a moment, looking at the tray the way a careful person looks at a map before a long journey. Then she raised her eyes to Nathan and asked her first question. She asked him why he had chosen this food. Nathan answered without hesitation. He had not chosen it. It was a standard tray the agency sent out for all candidate meetings. Impressive, inexpensive, simple, nothing in it that would offend most species they had worked with. He had not thought about it much at all. To be honest, Dara was quiet for a moment. She reached out and lifted the mug of coffee. She took a slow sip. Her expression did not change. She said his answer was the answer of someone who managed systems, not people. She did not say it like an insult. She said it the way someone states the weather. A fact. Something to know. Nathan accepted that without argument. She set the mug down and asked her second question. She asked him, if he had known she was coming, what would he have changed? This one took him a few seconds longer. He thought about it properly. Then he said, he would have asked her beforehand. He would have sent a short message. Nothing complicated. Just a question about what she preferred, or if there was anything he should know. He said he would not have assumed. Dara reached out and picked up one of the small crackers. She looked at it. She ate it slowly. She told him that was a better answer. It showed that he gathered information for making decisions. It showed he understood the difference between a standard action and a correct one. She said this was a quality she respected in anyone she worked under. Nathan said nothing. He only waited. She said, add the small cup of tomato soup. Then she looked at him and asked her third question. She asked him, the soup is cold. What does that tell him? Nathan blinked. He had not noticed. He reached out and put his hand around the cup. It was cold, not warm, not even close to warm. He frowned. He made a short note on the edge of his paper. Then he looked up and said simply that it told him something in his supply chain had made a mistake, and he had not caught it before it reached her. He said that was on. The silence that followed was the longest of the three. Didara picked up the cup of cold soup and drank it, all of it. She set the empty cup back on the tray without any fuss. She said that among her peoples, the only leader worth following into dangerous ground was one who accepted fault rather than worry. Leaders who hid their mistake put everyone around them at risk. Leaders who named their mistakes fixed them. She finished the sandwich in two clean bites. She folded her hands on the table. She told Nathan he could continue his questions now. Pen found his place in the list of questions and kept going. But something in the room had shifted, and both of them knew it. It was no longer just an employer reviewing a candidate. It was two people deciding whether they could trust each other. Dora's answer to the job questions were sharp and detailed. She spoke about deep space logistics the way someone speaks about a subject that have lived inside for a long time. She knew the difference between a route delay caused by fuel shortage and one caused by crew coordination. One caused by crew coordination failures. She had handled both. She described a supply crisis on a conflict zone run 3 years ago, where she had rerouted an entire cargo chain in under 6 hours because the original plan had collapsed. Nobody had gone without what they needed. Nathan wrote quickly. He had interviewed a lot of people for a lot of positions. He knew the difference between some who had read about a job and someone who had done it. Dara had done it. By the time they finished, it was past midday. Nathan thanked her and told her he would be in touch shortly. She stood, nodded once, and left. The station was small, word moved through it fast. By late afternoon, a representative from the Vulcan Trading Company had approached Lucy in the corridor. near the water station. The Vulcan were reached species heavily focused on process and protocol. Their representative was short, pale skinned, and wore three credentials pages at once. He asked Lucy in a very formal tone whether the human agency had survived the York evaluation had survived the Orc evaluation. Lucy looked confused. She said she thought so. She said she believed it had gone well. The Vulcan representative was quiet for a moment. Then he said that very few non-orc organizations passed the meal test during the first encounter. He said that the human manager had apparently not panicked, had not invented excuses, and had accepted responsibility for the cold soup without being asked twice. He called this unusual. He seemed genuinely impressed. He also seemed faintly unsettled by it, and if it had changed some small belief he had held about humans for a long time. Lucy brought this back to Nathan. She relayed the whole conversation word for word because she had written it down. Nathan read her notes with the same quiet expression he held through most things. He did not say much. He made once more note of his own. The next morning he sent Daravos a formal letter. The terms were better than the original posting, more carefully written, more fairly structured. He also, without announcement, updated the agency's intake process. From now on, every candidate would receive a short message before their first meeting asking about preferences, systems, and anything the agency should know before they arrived. He slid a copy of the offer across our desk toward the outbox tray and noticed, and he did, that someone had finally replaced the coffee on his desk with a hot cup. He picked it up and kept working. That evening, Dara read the offer at a small table in her temporary quarters on the station. She read it slowly and carefully, the way she did everything. When she reached the section on rest hours, she stopped. Nathan had added 10 extra rest hours per transit cycle, beyond what the original contract offered. She looked at this for a long moment, then she sent him a short message asking why. His reply came back in less than 2 minutes. He wrote that her file noted. She came from a cold climate region. Long deep space halls affected cold climate crew members differently than warm climate ones, especially on extended tours. He said he had read the file this time. Dara sent the message on. She was quite far away. Then she signed the offer. 2 months later, the long haul Sovereign was 3 weeks into a different cargo run and running exactly on speed. This, by the standards of deep space freight, was close to a miracle. Captain T.T. Aldrin had been hauling cargo across deep space lanes for 19 years. He was a quiet man, deeply practical, not the kind of person who gave out compliments without reason. He had wounded three different freighters and had buried more mistakes than he cared to count. He did not impress easily. He had been watching Darabos since he came abroad. She ran the logistic desk the way a very experienced person runs a complicated machine, quietly, consistently, with small adjustments that nobody else seemed to notice until they realized something had not gone wrong. She spoke little during crew meals, but listened to everything. Her younger orc crew member, a tall and aged young man named Greg, who worked supply under her, followed her directions without questions, and she taught him without making him feel smart. 3 weeks in, she found something buried in the cargo manifest. from before our time. There was a supply calculation error. Whoever had done the number of the final leg rations had rounded out in three separate places, which on its own seemed minor. Added together across the full road, it meant the crew would come up short on food for the last 4 days of travel. Dara caught it on a Tuesday morning during a routine audit that nobody had asked her to run. She recalculated, she redistributed the stored supply across the road in a way that balanced things out without pulling from emergency reserves. She updated the manifest and filled a quiet note about where the original error had come from. She did not raise her voice about it. She did not make it into a story. She fixed it and moved on. Patty found out at the end of the day when he reviewed the updated manifest. She went to the logistic desk and stood in the door for a moment. He asked her how she had caught something that the last three coordinators had missed across three full runs. Dana did not look up immediately from her screen. Then she said two words, "Hold soap." Patty started at her. Patty stared at her. She sat down her work and explained it to briefly. She told him about the interview, the standard tray, the three questions, the soup that had arrived cold because someone in the process had stopped paying close attention to the small things. She said that a cold cup of soup and a rounding error in a supply manifest were not different problems. They were the small problem wearing different clothes. Someone upstream had stopped caring about the details. She had been looking for that kind of problem ever since. Hetty was quiet for a while. Then he asked who the human's manager was. She told him Nathan Cole, or Whittlebridge recruitment, upper station, third floor. Patty nodded. He said nothing else. He went back to Ridge that night after the crew had eaten a full and properly portioned dinner. Dara sat alone at the small table near the cargo monitoring screen. She took a photograph on her personal device. It was a small image. It was a simple image. A cup of soap, steaming hot, sitting on the crew table under the soft yellow lights of the freighter. She sent it to Nathan Cole with no message attached. Back on the station, Nathan was at his desk late, reviewing files for two new open positions. His screen chimed with the incoming message. He opened it and looked at the photograph for a long time. A cup of soap, or floating somewhere out in deep space on a ship, doing exactly what it was supposed to do. He sent the message aside and went back to his files. But before he did, he smiled. It was small and quiet, the kind of smile that does not need an audience. The orc woman had come in for a job. She had brought with her a test that nobody in the agency had known to prepare for, and Nathan Cole had passed it. The only way anyone ever passes the kind of test. Not by being clever, not by saying the right things, just by being honest about a cold cup of soup. Sometimes, across all distance between different kinds of people, there is more than enough. A cold cup of soup that taught more than any long speech ever could. The small things a person ignores tell the truth about who they are. Honesty in a quiet moment is worth more than confidence in a loud one. A leader who says that was my fault is the only kind worth following far from home. Respect between different kinds of people does not need grand gestures. It needs attention. Preparation is not about knowing everything. It is about being willing to learn before you assume. And sometimes the most important test you will ever face arrives on an ordinary trail without any warning at all.